Hi, good morning. This is Sanjeev Saxena. I am presenting the paper Changing Consumer Behavior During Pandemic Going Beyond Normal for Business Sustainability. Right, and this is the paper which has been written by me. I am the sole author of this paper, and this deals with how the consumer has evolved, right, in terms of the behavior during the pandemic time, and how it has transformed from being normal to beyond normal for business sustainability. That means it is discussing with those issues which are for business sustainability. That means business units can be take actions that will support the continuity of the business and its sustainability, right? And in particular, this paper addresses the following research question: what defines consumer behavior in the new normal? What are the drivers of new normal? What means and mechanisms are needed to measure the impact of these drivers? And what actions are needed for sustainability of business units in the new normal? So in effect, what has been exactly this paper is being discussed is what defines consumer behavior. That means consumer behavior is a dynamic entity. So as we have moved to the new normal, so what defines consumer behavior? That is what this paper addresses. And what are the drivers? That means, as we know that we are in the pandemic times, and in the pandemic time, what are the drivers? What led to these things, right? What measures and mechanisms are needed to measure the impact of these drivers? That means it is focusing more on the implementation aspects, right? It is dealing more on the implementation aspects, and that means we need to identify what exactly is consumer behavior, what are the drivers responsible, and once we have identified the consumer behavior, the driver, then how are we going to implement in terms of their measurement mechanism? Because if there is no measurement mechanism, we will not be able to ensure that these are effective. Then what actions are needed for sustainability of business units in the new normal? That means what actions should business units take for ensuring that sustainability of these business units are being taken care of in the new normal, right? Then the development of the paper is based on the theory of change management process, right, and protection management theory. That means because we are in the pandemic, lot of things have changed, and how those changes have been managed, that is what has been discussed. The development of the paper is based on primary as well as secondary data from respondent, right? Why we take in secondary data? Because we need to have some base. Primary data has been taken so that we come to know what exactly the customers are behaving and what business units are taking care of in terms of addressing the sustainability issues. Then the respondents comprise of students, housewives, and working executives. Right? The scope of the study is restricted to the application of technology in enabling them to change their behavior. That means now what I have done in this paper, I have brought in an aspect of technology, how technology has influenced the behavior of the consumers, and what business units must take into consideration of providing value addition to the customers, and whether they have made efforts to adjust to their changing requirements. That's what I have been discussing. Purposes: sampling is applied, and the sample size that I initially targeted was 500, but later on due to missing elements and other verification and validation activities not being passed by some of the respondents, so it got restricted to 320. And data was collected by means of Google Forms as well as through literature review process. Technique applied included descriptive techniques and multivariate analysis. The reason why I have applied descriptive techniques is because descriptive techniques provides me the base figures. That means the base from where I come to know what exactly is the position and how that change has taken up from that base thing. And so the base thing has been determined on the basis of these descriptive statistics parameter. And why I have applied multivariate analysis? Because this paper addresses the drivers. There are multiple drivers for inducing that changes in the consumer behavior. Right? There's technology, there's consumer emotions, there's ease of use and other things. So that is what has been one of that emerged is the role of the supply chain mechanism. That means the supply chain mechanism also suited itself to the changing circumstances. That means they change their model, they change their operational model, they change their style and working. And the study contributes to the literature by providing new insight to the behavior of the consumers, right, who are constrained at home and yet need today. The managerial implication of the study is the fact that it provides new domain for study, right, wherein the managers can identify the drivers, develop action plan and then implement them and then measure them through several techniques, right. The study is limited in the form of access to secondary literature available on the internet. So that means whatever informed due to pandemic, lockdown was imposed. So only thing that was available was the literature available on the internet. So that was the limitation. Otherwise, if there had been an access to libraries and other things, more things would have come out. The drivers are also driven by the context. That means whatever the drivers to the change thing, they were driven by the context and need for measuring the impact of these drivers and to develop action plans by the managerial person so that they can come out. So this is the gist of the paper, and the contribution to the existing literature is because there were so many things in that which was not addressed, because this pandemic has affected the worldwide things. It is not here that it is limited or confined to one geographical area. It has impacted the geographical area. Okay, thank you. This is all from my